Applied logic basically has two branches: the study of the rules of logic and the study of logical fallacies. These are really opposite ways of approaching the same topic. The study of the rules of logic asks, what arguments are valid? The study of fallacies asks, basically, what arguments are invalid? An argument is valid exactly when it lacks counterexamples, and it is invalid exactly when it has counterexamples. Therefore, the basic question of the study of logical fallacies has already been answered. The subtlety left out so far is that there is a large distinction between valid arguments and winning arguments. Validity is a formal property of an argument, in the sense that it only depends on the form of the argument. Most winning arguments lack this formal property. If one's argument happens to be formally valid, and one is dealing with a receptive, reasonable audience who considers the premises of the argument to be true, then one is probably going to win the argument. Yet, it is rare outside of the field of math that all of those pieces come together. Most winning arguments in most fields are not formally valid. If we consider invalid arguments to be fallacious, then many fallacious arguments are winning. It would not be conservative, however, to equate fallacious arguments with non-winning arguments, because whether an argument is winning is extremely context-dependent, and the resulting understanding would not line up with the traditional understanding of fallacies. I will simply say that, strictly speaking, fallacious arguments are, by definition, logically invalid arguments. Many winning arguments are fallacious, and that's not necessarily a problem. According to this, the study of fallacies covers ground already covered by the study of the rules of logic. Yet, approaching the topic with a fresh perspective, but from the opposite angle, is also quite useful. Medieval logicians cataloged lists of categories of fallacies. The widely known terminology of fallacies, ad hominem fallacy, appeal to authority fallacy, etc., provides easily accessible ammunition for debunking bad arguments. It is very intellectually productive to ask what arguments are bad and set about categorizing them. In this spirit, I recommend Wikipedia's list of fallacies. So inductive arguments, such as statistical inferences, are usually logically invalid. One can almost never infer infallibly from observations about a sample of a population to generalizations about the entire population. Statistically inferred generalizations are fallible, and strictly speaking, they are fallacies. This illustrates that pointing out that an argument is fallacious, i.e. logically invalid, does not necessarily undermine the argument. Fallacious arguments can be rationally persuasive, e.g., well-constructed statistical arguments. Establishing that an argument is fallacious establishes that there is some room for doubt about its conclusion, even assuming all its premises are true. It does not, however, establish that the argument is devoid of merit from a rational perspective. To establish that an argument is devoid of merit from a rational perspective, I think it's usually not sufficient to pattern match it against a fallacy. Usually, you also need to look at some of the particulars of the case.